Hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to Lord of the Rings Online plugins. Here on my personal channel, because of a Twitch glitch that is preventing us streamers from broadcasting over there until Cordovin pushes a button or something, and he's on vacation this week. So we're going to be doing this here. So welcome. Seeing some familiar names that are all getting like a first-time chat over here because I rarely stream over here. Hopefully you all can see and hear me okay. I think I have understood how to make OBS do this thing that we're doing right now. And if not, we'll find out. So, last time on Plugin Along, we were working on the Deep Tracker plugin. A user reported an issue with the recent file format update, and when I first dug into it, it looked like a bunch of things were wrong. We actually found, I think, all of them during last stream. That was excellent. And today we're going to review the changes needed for update 36, something Gondor deeds, and see if there's anything else we can bundle into that, small bug fixes or features or something, so that an update can go out this week with those new deeds. So as always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions, be they about LOTRO plugins in specific or LOTRO in general. That's all good. All right, so let me go ahead and click a button over here. And can you see my mouse cursor? I can't see my mouse cursor. That's not great. Capture cursor. I'm going to turn that off and turn it back on. Okay, I saw it briefly. Okay, so you can see it as long as it's not over the game. All right, well, hey, where's the game? Uncertain. Well, we'll just run with that. Okay, so a thing I wanted to mention is Little Redhead's inventory. We had just worked on it this week. And so she started off the day with a pretty clean looking inventory. Mine's not that clean, but you can always use the sort button to kind of pack everything that's existing in your bag down. I'm using just the built-in Lord of the Rings Online bag, but you can pull parts of it out into either put them all into one bag, or if you like having separate different bags for different things, you can do that within the game itself by clicking the little edit mode button here. Oh, now my cursor is showing up. All right, cool. So I wanted to make sure, people knew that you can make an all bag if you want in-game. You don't need a plugin for that, although there is an all bag plugin that does just that thing. And this, of course, is an inventory with all 135 slots unlocked. If you have fewer than that, of course, it's going to look a little bit smaller, even in the all bag format. Amber says, you seem to have more slots than I have seen. Yeah, I am fortunate enough to have a little disposable income that I throw at SSG, and one of the things I really like to have is inventory space. Because while I enjoy LOTRO as an MMO, I don't enjoy the whole, hey, my inventory is full. I have to pull myself mentally out of whatever I'm doing story-wise, out in the world, and find someone to sell all this stuff to. I like to abstract that away with large inventories and with carry-alls, because I just am not invested with that mentality of role-playing someone who can carry 7 things. It's, perhaps it's a little bit more realistic in this fantasy world that has dragons, but it's just not where I want to focus my mental energies. So I much prefer to just have a big black hole that I can chuck everything into, and it doesn't matter. So that's where I put my LOTRO points early on. Same thing with shared storage. Shared storage works across all servers and for all of your characters, so I bumped that up to 330 as soon as I had the wherewithal to do that. Pamela checks that bag inventory is account-wide across servers, isn't it? Absolutely. That's another thing where I love doing bag space, because every character has that. So every new character that I create has 135-ish more spots for storing stuff that's bound to account or not bound at all, that I can just toss at them. It's like, here, hold another 100 things, hold another 100 things, hold another 100 things. So I have 12 or so alts over on Treebeard for the account-wide titles that you could unlock with the landscape difficulty. Now that that's come to the main servers, I may need to change my thought process on that. But it means that I have, for each of those characters, for each 12 of those alts, that gives me times 100, so 1,200 inventory spaces just from unlocking all of this personal space, as opposed to your vault, where every time you add space in the LOTRO store, although I don't think I have any more that I can get. No. Every time you add space here, it is only for this character. So for me, it's much more important to unlock your bag space and your shared storage space if you're going to spend any money on storage. Because in individual space, multiply by however many alts you have on that server, and that's the real increment there. And shared storage is just, it's so useful to be able to store things there temporarily and pass things back and forth. Little Redhead points out, bag inventory, shared storage, and wardrobe, yes, good point, our account-wide personal character vault upgrades are character-specific. Arthur says, when I transferred from Shadowfax, I was at over 600 slots for shared storage, managed to whittle it down below the proper limit. Yeah, that can absolutely happen. You can see here, I got 210 out of the 330, so it's kind of at a low tide position for me. If I really work at it, I can get it down below 150 or something. But what I will usually do is I will use these buckets as the general storage for things, and then, yeah, I've got some carry-alls, but I don't worry about putting stuff in the carry-alls right away. So, for instance, there's some gems sitting here in my jeweler bucket. I mean, if I was being really on the ball, oops, wrong one, I would pull out my gem bucket, my gem carry-all, set auto on, pull out those gems, set auto off, and then put it away. But having this extra buffer means that I can just do that like once a week, once a month, whatever, and the rest of the time it's just there. So right before I'm about to use gems, or if my inventory overfloweth, then I'll go ahead and do that kind of, okay, let's get into the carry-all. But otherwise, I'm using this buffer as a way to purchase time. Like, the more I can push off that pull things out and organize them activity, the more time I buy, because it takes about the same amount of time to pull 1 stack of gems as it does 10 stack of gems out of shared storage and have them automatically slurped into my crafting carry-all. Okay, there's marginal incremental, like, oh, it takes an extra second. But the actual effort of opening it, pulling out the bag, opening it up, clicking that auto, like, that's a fixed cost, whether you're doing 1 stack or 10 stacks or 15 stacks. So I try to batch them up, so I'm getting as many stacks to make that a little bit more efficient. Same thing with scroll cases. Like, nominally, I have an area to store scroll cases for whatever, but I'm just going to get more of them next time I'm out adventuring. So as long as I have the room for them in the shared storage, it's just, hey, Barrymore, that's my woodworker. So all my woodworker scrolls go there, and when I need the space or the next time I happen to be on with Barrymore, I'll clean that up. So one thing I wanted to point out is that your bare inventory, the all bag, it's nice, but I got to a point where it was difficult for me to manage that, and I think starting next week, I really want to get into making some modifications to this plugin, if they still are necessary, rolling forward the personal modifications I've made, so these are available for other people. But there is a plugin called the Prime Bags plugin, and it replaces your bag with a bag of bags, as it were. And this bag of bags, each of these sub bags, you can create them and say, here are the things that I want to go in there. And so what I've done is I have a base bag. These are the things that I want them in my inventory, and I don't want to have to worry about them. And so I have a base bag, and that's where my Bjorning honeycakes goes, and my soup, and my drum, because sometimes I just want a drum, and my portents, and scrolls, and more food, and potions, and apparently I just got a... Anyway, and so things that I don't want to worry about. I just want to, yes, they're there, but they're not worth, being part of my calculus. And so I've gotten some other things while I was out with Little Redhead while we were doing missions there. And so you can make these buckets and say, hey, anytime I get something called Eastonmet Scholar's Scroll Case, I would like it to go into a bucket called Arda, and that corresponds with the name of my shared storage where I'm going to put that. So everything that's in Arda, when I'm done with a session for the day, when I'm doing a cleanup of my inventory, drag stuff from Arda to the bucket called Arda, and then I drag stuff from Skildvakt to the bucket called Skildvakt. And then I don't have to do the thinking. Drag stuff from Affadil to the bucket called Affadil. I'm just doing what it tells me to. Now, there's a few things where I have to think about it. Skildvakt is the character who is currently slurping up my Virtue XP potions because my Virtue XP is all full until we get an expansion. So trophies, as opposed to trash, so you can just say, hey, don't tell me it's a trophy when it's not a trophy. I have made a trash bucket, put it there. But I do have some trophy items, so I'll go to the task carryall because I'm a sucker for carryalls, slurp those things up and put it back. Awesome. I've got some essences. I know where those are stored right now, but that's not a permanent location. And consumables, oh, I've got that in my personal, cool. That's going to come on over here, and cool. I believe the release version will automatically solve this problem, but I've got a bunch of empty bags here, so I close it, I reopen it, and now my bag is much more organized. And I've got a few things in my bag still to take care of, that, some trash, and do I care about these treads of kept promises? I do not. So we're just going to sell those. So that gives me sort of my default inventory right now. I'm playing around with some different equipment for DPS and heal based on the Rise of Isengard instance cluster, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with them. So I just made sure, hey, they're going to be in a specific bucket. So if I put something on, let's say I put these gloves on, cool. I didn't have the old gloves categorized, but it means it's very obvious to me what I've just done. So I'm going to put those old gloves back on. There's a bug in my version that's not in the release version where what you just saw there, the last thing that swapped into a category didn't go quite right, but you close it, you reopen it again, it's fine. This is Prime Bags. It's part of the Prime plugin package. Let me go ahead and go over to LOTRO interface. Let's see, Prime. So if you go to Prime Plugin, let me go ahead and put a link to that in chat. Prime plugin. It is actually a collection of several different plugins. So we can see Prime Bags, Prime Cast, Prime Parse, Prime Party Vitals, Prime Plugin. And so this is a thing that a number of raider types in the LOTRO community use for the raiding aspect of it. I have done almost nothing with that. I just like it for the bag. And so one of the things I want to do, if it's not already there in the release version, I'm so far behind, I'm like a year behind of updates, is I want to be able to order the these buckets over here, so I can say what order they show up in the bag over here, and that wasn't there when I sort of forked off and started making my own tweaks to see how can I make this work for my brain, but it could be there now. So next week I'm going to start delving I'm staring at a bunch of delving things. So one of the things I really like is that in the new delving system, you get a box that just vaporizes, I think, after an hour. And so I have a bag in this Prime bag called Open Me Now. And so whenever I open it up and there's something in Open Me Now, I'm like, oh, cool, that's an expiring thing that I need to deal with soon. And that's something that it's nice to get the game to like, hey, poke, like, don't forget about this. So I was reminded of this because Little Redhead was saying, oh, I've just got like 20 things in my inventory, and those are things that should stay there. And this is how I manage that for me, is I have a bag called Base, you name it whatever you want, stuff that should always be here.com. And Bart says, an example of what you mean by expiring things. Yeah. Let's see. Let me see if the wiki has an obvious screenshot of that. So, tier 2 delving chest. Great. So, you can, when you do a delving successfully, and you can get these in other places, we've just been doing delvings recently, so it's in my head, you will get a reward called a tier 2 delving chest. Binds on acquire, item level 1, and you will see item expires in 1 hour. That just ticks down. And as far as I know, haven't tried it yet, when that hits 0, the item just disappears from your inventory, which would be sad because there's cool stuff in there. So for instance, you can get whatever, all sorts of things. And so you don't have to get to it right away, but you do want to get to it within an hour. And it also comes with 10 delving writs, which are an important currency in the delving system. I think there are some other places you can get expiring items. Like I said, this is just in the forefront of my head. So having a box called Open Me Now for things that are going to expire, and I really want to go ahead and consume them. I don't remember why these non-delving things are in here, but I'm sure it made sense to me at the time, and that's fine. So, yeah, I can look at this and know, okay, cool, everything in base is supposed to be there. Don't have to care about that. Right now, while I'm testing things out, I know that everything in DPS gear and heal gear is supposed to be there, and I've got this jewelry thing that I'm still trying to figure out what, do I like it more? Not sure yet. And so it's lower level. It will disenchant into motes. It's all fine. I will probably stop using it, but we're quickly going to become it's going to be overcome by events as we go into the Riders of Rohan expansion that's coming here to Treatbeard. So really, I'm just looking at these and looking at these and looking at these. In about a month, I'll just sell them all because it won't matter anymore. Which is my preferred way to deal with equipment questions. Ignore it until it's not a problem. Okay, so that's the Prime Bags plugin. It's not one of mine, but I think Prime Bags is really interesting because for me, it helps because of the way I use shared storage to distribute things to my alts, especially crafting things, scrolls, and stuff. Like, I happen to know that Rose really is working on scholaring, and I'm not working on scholaring. So at the end of a session, I don't have to think about, where does this stuff go? Where is this wood going? Where's this scholar stuff going? I just look at the bucket that says Rose, and I find the shared storage bucket called Rose, and I just put it in there. I don't really have to think about it at all. And that's nice, because after 4 or 6 hours of playing LOTRO, I want to take clean inventory, but I don't have to think about it. So, like I said, I think next week, assuming all goes well with the D-Tracker, I'm going to switch over and make sure that I can use the current version of Prime Bags instead of a year-old, 2-year-old one with some modifications. Hey, there's a cat on the... Oh, hey. Behind me on the couch. May not be visible. I'm not sure.
He is.
Yes, that dark lump right there is a cat sleeping from an exciting day outside. Oh, okay. Has his head up? Nice. Well, maybe he'll come closer. If so, we'll change so we can see that. Okay. So, Prime Bags, I encourage people to give it a try. If you try it out and there are things that you're like, oh, I wish it worked a little bit differently, let me know, because I also may wish it worked a little bit differently, and I may work with Rollo, the developer, or just put out a patch and see if they want to incorporate it in order to make it work that way. Because that's been a thing on my mind for a while. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and unload that. Whenever you unload it, you get your bag back. Like you don't have to log out or anything. When the plugin is loaded, LOTRO knows that it's responsible for your bag. When you unload the plugin, your bag is serviced by LOTRO again. So whenever you don't have to worry about loading it and be like, oh no, something terrible is going on. Like even if it stops showing your stuff is still there. And so, oops. So you can also, if you are interested, let me go ahead and pull this out. You can do a plugins/plugins space list to get a list of your currently loaded plugins. So if you have more than one plugin loaded, you can just slash plugins space unload space prime bags in quotes. And that will just unload that specific apartment of which only the Prime Bags plugin is a member. So it's like unloading that plugin. And that gets you your normal bag back. So if ever anything is going wrong, you can just unload it. Even if you have other plugins loaded, you can unload just that specific one. I will do that every once in a while because sometimes it's just easier to deal with something with the normal bag than with that. The Prime Bags mini bags are 5 wide. It might be controllable, but normally I like it being 5 wide. But when I dump 100 boxes out of my 101 overflow, it makes for a very long tower of inconvenience in my bag. So sometimes I'll just go ahead and dump that into the normal LOTRO bag. And so it's very nice to just be able to swap back and forth between them. Okay, cool. On to the actual topic of this stream. Well, I mean, it's a plugin. It's all on topic. But we're talking about Deed Tracker today. We were just working on some allegiance stuff on Little Redhead's stream, so we can see that we're working our way through 18 through 30, so we're over halfway through the storyline of the Zelruka, which is nice. I've never done an allegiance more than like just getting into the Hobbit one in Mordor and being like, oh, that's cool, and then I left. So it's neat that we have access to one below level 100, and I think it's neat to see the pace of this. Like, if we were doing this every day, I think we would complete the Zelruka content in less than a month, obviously. But I don't know if you could do it within a week, but just a couple of weeks, a month, that kind of a time scale for an allegiance, and that's not too bad. And Bart says, you have to go. Thank you for the inventory info. You're very welcome. Glad you could join us for a little bit, and we'll see you next time. So update 36 just came out. I have trouble remembering what it is, so I go to the the Gondor tab, and I hover over the rightmost one, and we see it's the Renewal of Gondor. That's update 36, and that's the post Midsummer Celebration content that leads you out of Gondor. Now that's far above the level here on Treebeard. It's actually far above the level of any of my characters anywhere, but I have done the process of loading those deeds into Deed Tracker, so we can get a little preview here. So the Renewal of Gondor, first of all, it's a new tab, which the system that I use for deeds is not set up for new tabs as gracefully as I would like it to be. Because it's a thing that only happens usually every 6 months to 12 months, it's just, okay, here's 10 minutes of angst to deal with it, and then don't worry about it for another year kind of thing. But that being said, Renewal of Gondor here, we have a Vanquisher of Eastern Gondor renewed, which needs you to complete 3 Slayers, Losanark, Upper Lebanon, Lower Lebanon. So that's the area that we're talking about on the map. If we come on into Gondor, we have Losanark here, Upper Lebanon, and Lower Lebanon over here on the left. And I believe I saw in the release notes that currently there's an impassable at Linhir. And so I doubt you can go further west than this point at this point. Okay, so Eastern Gondor and half of Central Gondor post Midsummer. Okay. Coming back into the review here, you have a Slayer of Losanark, Slayer of Upper Lebanon, Slayer of Lower Lebanon. We also have Explorer of King's Gondor East, and that includes Stragglers and New Threats, Reclaiming Losanark, and so on. Upper Lebanon and Lower Lebanon. So definitely some consistency here. Stragglers and New Threats in Losanark Upper and Lower, or Claiming Losanark Upper and Lower. Cool. And then Tales of Eastern Gondor renewed, one in each of them. Tales of Losanark, Upper Lebanon, and Lower Lebanon. So pretty straightforward deeds there. We also have a new reputation. Scroll all the way down to the bottom here. The Renewal of Gondor Reputation Faction, which you can go from neutral all the way to kindred with. And those will provide LOTRO points as you do that. All right. And finally, there were 2 epic deeds that came in. Summons from King Elisar and the Song of Waves and Winds that requires you to finish that chapter 1.10 inside every story. So they talked about in the release notes an epic-like story that guides you through the new areas, and I would guess that that's what they're talking about. Okay, those were the new ones. There's a new Valar 140 that's supposed to unlock all of the various skirmishes that are locked behind questing, and I think that's accomplished by a new set of deeds. But I want to get over on Bulwark and test it out before I incorporate them over here into Deed Tracker, because as far as I can tell, it's going to plop a deed into Lone Lands that gives you access to the Forsaken Inn, and it'll plop a deed here, there, just plop a deed that's basically unobtainable, and when you do obtain it, the only thing it does is gives you access to these skirmishes. And so I don't know how I feel about them being in the Deed Tracker, but especially not before I see them over on Bulwark. So I need to actually remember to get over there next time Bulwark is open. Anyway, so those are the deeds. Those deeds are in here, and we can take a quick peek at what it takes to add those deeds on in. So, Cube plugins. Okay, update U36 deeds. One of the things that's really great about using source control is that you can go and look at a snapshot, a commit of changes that were necessary to do a thing. And so if we come on in to the update 36 deeds, we can say, here's what it required in order to add those in. So there's some data information changes. It's all done programmatically. I didn't have to change every one of those lines. But we have new sections that show up in the deed log. We have new strings, a lookup table, all sorts of different things. And a lot of that's just adding the new tab. Probably should have broken out adding the new tab separately from putting deeds in there, but I was a little lazy on that commit. Anytime we have new deeds, it's nice to be able to have automatic objectives for them. And so we can see, add a location, find this camp, after the defeat of Peligir, some of the Corsairs escape, blah, blah, blah. That's the lore you would see in the deed log. Okay. Added update 36. So it's a whole bunch of changes in order to support adding a new tab and then the new deeds that come in for that. There were also some tweaks to existing deeds that I thought was interesting, especially in the English side where they're a little bit more maybe proactive about finding hyphenated words that weren't hyphenated properly. So here's an example: is safeguard got hyphenated. It was just safeguard one word, and they've updated it to be safe-guard. Okay. Not specifically what I think of as an update 36 deed, but it was a change as part of update 36. And you see that over and over again here in the English side of things. We have Lorien Lookout is the title. That's look-out with a hyphen. In fact, I should have access to that title. So look. Yep, the title is now Lorien Look-out instead of Lookout with no hyphen. I assume that's more of a British thing. But for whatever reason, they've decided to do that update. Cool. All right. So we have update 36 in the deed tracker. This could go out just as a release. But while we have some attention on this, it would be neat to say, hey, any of the legion of improvement ideas or bugs that are sitting there, can we do anything about them? Possibly. Okay, actually this one's already been done. The import from LOTRO Companion, someone wrote in and said that they had an account, the account name ends with a period, and so the folder that LOTRO tries to create in your plugin data, Documents LOTRO Wings Online plugin data, it is not legal for a folder to end in a period in Windows. That's just, there's reasons for it, but it's just a thing. So if I were to make a new folder here and call it test, cool. If I try to add a period at the end, it doesn't work. It goes away. Windows is smart enough to say, oh, no. And so it might not even be anything that LOTRO is doing. LOTRO might very well be trying to create test period, but Windows will say, yeah, you created test, and now that you're trying to open test period, you have just opened test. Good job. And so it might be, for whatever reason, now the question I really have is, if you had both the account with and without the period, would LOTRO know the difference? Would it be able to tell the difference? That's the thing where maybe just don't get yourself into that kind of a problem, but it makes me very curious. B414213562, period. My guess is that LOTRO does not differentiate, does not pay attention to it, and your plugin data files would be mangled together, which doesn't work. Plugins don't know how to deal with that. So, but that was actually a really easy fix, because you just strip off a trailing period if it exists, and I managed to do that in about 5 minutes right before the last release. All right. I don't know how easy this is, but all servers are difficulty servers now. For a while, there's a checkbox that says this is a difficulty server, and that's because over here in Class Race Epic, class, there are deeds, Adept of Song, Master of Song, and they have not historically been listed as not actively achievable because that the not active flag didn't exist when I was setting those up. It was just like, oh, you're on Treebeard, of course they're available. If you say it's not a difficulty server, those don't get shown. But now everything has access to the landscape difficulty deeds. And as we can see, if we come over to Class Race Epic class, Adept of Song, Master of Song, anyone on any server now, as long as they get the appropriate quest started for their landscape difficulty, has access to those. So that's one of two things that I'm thinking about. The other one is under Race and Social. Let's see. Alright, here we go. Avoiding defeat. Something I did a few releases ago was the avoiding defeat deeds. The deeds you can complete by not having died by the time you hit level 5, level 10, level 14, level 17, and level 20. For a while there was a setting that was just like, hey, hide those if you're above the level and you didn't get them. But again, that was because we didn't have a not actively available mechanism. And now we do have a not actively available mechanism. But the maximum level 20 means that if I did have it, but somehow it wasn't marked, right now we are hiding things with a maximum level. And I think these are the only things with a maximum level. And so if I were to uncheck the unscathed, go away, come back and think, oh no, you know what, I should have left that checked. The box isn't there. We're hiding the box for, I think, no good reason. It's unnecessary now that this is just in the not actively achievable system. I don't think it's necessary at all. And again, I think these are the only ones with a maximum level. So first, let's double check my assumptions. Let's go into the data files and deed data and search for max underscore level. All right, there's 7 of them. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 of them are legendary server ones for the in their absence content, I believe. So here's our max level 20. And here's your max level 65 Legendary Challenger Dol Guldur and in their absence. For whatever reason, you can only do those at level 65. So Treebeard is beyond that at this point, so they're no longer available. But I think, given that there's only 7 of these things, I don't think it makes sense to hide that checkbox. I think that logic is no longer good logic. So we have to ask ourselves, how is that happening? So we can see this checkbox is being shown or not in the main window here. So what I would do is I would go into mainwin.lua. This is a difficult file to read because there's a lot here. There's 1,400 lines. It's not structured very well anymore. I'm not sure it was ever structured well, but as it keeps growing and growing and growing, it calls out for refactoring, moving things around, possibly putting things into different files, splitting up large functions into multiple smaller functions, just things to make maintaining it a little bit easier. But having worked on this a lot, I know that I'm looking for this this function that we're currently over, which is setting up all of the UI elements, the refresh deed view. This is responsible for everything that is in this deed window down here. So what we can look for is to say, when does the checkbox not get shown? So, cool. we actually have quite a long Boolean logic here. So if it's not a category, and both it is not too high and it is not too low, or it's completed, then show it. Okay. This is where we could go ahead and fix that. The low level thing says that if you're too low level to have accomplished this thing, for instance, Beast Slayer of Lost and Ark King's Gondor Advanced has a minimum level of 135. You are mechanistically not going to complete this deed before then because you can't get the deed before then. Cool, okay. So not having the checkbox there makes sense. The low level thing, I don't think it makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and strip that out. And again, we've confirmed that it's only going to affect 7 deeds, so it's a very constrained change. And right here, deed level too low. If we go ahead and remove that, I don't care about that. We have now some extra parentheses. And now we can see that it's not a category, and it is either not too high level or it's already been marked completed through some magic. Either one of those is fine, then we draw the checkbox. Okay, let's take a look at that and see if that works. So we're just going to open up the plugin manager, reload this plugin. Oh, it's really thinking for some reason. I'll let it think. There we go. Okay, so we can see now that these checkboxes are back. So I can check it. I can go to another page. I can come back. I can uncheck things. And the fact that it is impossible for me to now complete it when it's too low level doesn't matter anymore. So that's going to help those people who are trying to manually fill in these avoiding defeat deeds. Awesome. It'll also technically let you, I want to say they're in Eriador, perhaps. We are on a legendary server, so if we come on into Dunland, maybe it's instances. Alright, Rise of Isengard in their absence. Well, those are there. Well, you got me curious. This is 2, 4, and 5. 2, 4, and 5. Legendary Challenger in their absence. Okay. There we go. So, Legendary Challenger, Dol Guldur, and in their absence, we can see those maximum level 65s. These are also checkable after the fact. That's fine. I'm comfortable with that. So, we can go ahead and come on in to our source control. This is Fork, available at fork.dev. It's a free tool that can wrap around GitHub, Git repositories. Okay, so I need some text describing this. I'm going to put that into the README. What are we calling this? Enhancements? Enhancements. Deeds be with a max level below the character's level can now be manually checked. Manually completed. Cool. And we're going to come back in and use that as the commit message because I'm lazy and I don't want to write that twice. Great. Now we can actually come into the README file and, the to-do file. All right, mark difficulties on. Okay, cool. And here it is again. Actually, I wrote it twice. Oh, checking out the wrong thing. If you're over level 20, you can't manually check off the survival deeds. Done. Okay, so awesome. Really not a long task to make that happen. The trick is knowing where it is happening. And fortunately, that was a pretty easy one to know about. It would be even easier if instead of having this long inline Boolean expression, if we go ahead and give it a name, local should button be drawn equals, and then it would be set to the value of this Boolean statement. We could even add some white space. So not that, and this or that. And then we could use that in the expression. If, and I've probably named it wrong, probably the button should be drawn. No, I like it better. Should button be drawn. So if should button be drawn, or if you like button should be drawn, is draw button yes, whatever you need. And then we're in here, and we can kind of, we don't need to read through the Boolean expression to figure out what should be happening. This is the logic that should happen if we should draw the button. And specifically, the completion button. Should completed checkbox be drawn. That's what it would maybe be a little bit more sensible of a name. And now this variable name is silly long, right? Should completed checkbox be drawn. That's really long. How many characters is that? 30 characters. You could make it shorter, but there's not a lot of need to. It's for me, a variable name, you're not typing it very often in this case. In fact, it's only being used the one time. So, and if you were to type it, well, modern editors mean that if as soon as you start typing it, you can just type a few letters and press tab. So, or copy paste it. So we shouldn't be thinking about how annoying is this to type so much as how annoying is it to figure out what this is doing without putting a name to it. And once we want to put a name to it, make it as short or as long as is necessary. You could have this just be draw checkbox, and that's fine. But really what we're testing is, should the checkbox be drawn? Not are we going to do it, but if not, why not? So I'm not sure I'm going to commit this right now, but that's the kind of hoisting out of that logic into its own named variable that we could be doing to maybe make this more clear. Since this is only used in the one place, I'm kind of iffy about it, because we could also just say, mark it up with a comment. If the completion checkbox should be drawn, draw it, or whatever, right? We can do a lot of the legwork just with a comment and not have to hoist out the logic from the conditional statement. Really, I would say is as long as there is no reason not to draw the completion checkbox, make it. Something like that. Okay. Now, what I would say is, I probably don't want to do all of that, but I could see keeping the comment, since I've already gotten it written. And then it would just look like this. As long as there is no reason not to make the completion checkbox, make it. That feels like a little convoluted in written form, so I'm not even sure I like that. But something's got to happen with this this huge long function that does things, because it's not easy to maintain. So I'm not going to do that right now, but that's the thing that I will do when I'm giving this function a revamp later. Okay. The hard one. All servers are difficulty servers now, so we want to remove that setting. Let's figure out where it is. We're looking for this is a difficulty server. This is a difficulty server. I'm typing into my search box. And we can see there's only one place that is defined. That's in strings.lua. And we can find all the places this is used. First of all, in the default server settings, difficulty server equals false. Don't need it anymore. All right, adding an option into the UI. Don't need that anymore. Is difficulty server, that we're going to have to track down. And this text here, we can get rid of that. So we're going to kill this load server field difficulty server, but the is difficulty server, that we need to know about. Where is that getting used? Good news, it's only being used in this function right here. And this is the function that is given a deed. Are we displaying it? And if not, what's going on? Is there custom extra information about it? I'm going to see if it's a difficulty deed and it's not a difficulty server, then we're skipping it. All right, so what's a difficulty deed? All right, we have this all over. All right, is difficulty deed. I don't know that I need to get rid of that. The concept of whether it's difficulty deed. I guess I don't mind marking it as a difficulty deed because that would be a shortcut of being not available. But all right, is difficulty deed. How are we using this? We would want to get rid of the difficulty. Okay. Let's mark that down as a thing to do. Get rid of d.difficulty and data files, so we don't forget about that. So this is difficulty deed function. We could get rid of that. Now, is difficulty deed, we can get rid of that. And is difficulty deed and not is difficulty server, well, we're already getting rid of that. Okay, let's do a global search for difficulty. All right, the README has some, the to-do file has some, and here just our data files have it. We can see difficulty equals true. Now these data files are generated. And so I don't want to edit them manually. I would want to edit the thing that produces them. Okay, so we're really looking at getting rid of them in the D data files. Okay. But at the same time, we want to mark them as not actively available. So how much sausage making do we see? In a section of the Cube plugins that is not released is the source files. And so we're going to come on into the class race epic ones. And we're going to take a look at this for a minute. Okay, so here are the difficulty servers. All right, here's the is difficulty is yes. Wait, you should just see 4 per class here. And do we have a not actively available? Possibly not. Okay. That's where we're marking these in the old system. In the new system, it's not done quite that way. And I don't think the new system is great, but we're going to take a look at it anyway. It's really just a homegrown system that keeps on getting worse and worse. Let's find... Okay, so we have a list of deeds that should be treated like difficulty. Awesome. What we really want to do is add those instead into the not actively available list, if there is such a thing. All right, not available list. Great. We do want to know what is the reason for it not being available. For that, I will want to pop into something else that actually has unavailable deeds and remind myself how this works. Apparently not like that. Okay, data files, deed info, available. Where would I have that information? Is not available. Let's look and see how that is used. Okay, get string not available. That's what I want. Data files not active reason. Fantastic. Okay, so these are the current reasons for why a deed is not available. I don't know what it is, or really I don't know why it's not available, it just doesn't seem to be. Or the deed is obsolete. It was in the game at one point, and it is no longer, so only characters that got it at the time. Hey, I should probably document these things, huh? Deed was once in the game. Oh, I don't actually know if this is generated or not. Oh, I hope it isn't. Deed was once in the game, no longer is. Only characters who got it at the time can have it. So compare that to limited time only, which is conceptually very similar. Some of the limited time onlys are the deeds for being among the first to complete a raid. Those deeds are technically still in the game. You just can't get them anymore. And so same situation. You missed out on your chance to get it, therefore no characters can get it again, but it's it feels slightly different to me. Deed could only be completed for a limited time after release, after it became available. Yeah, conceptually those are very similar, right? We don't know why it's not available. Okay, time gated. My goodness, did I ever use that compared to limited time only? Uncertain. I'm not sure how I used this. Might be worth finding out. In our D data, we have an NA equals. Do we have any 4s? Yeah. Boy, that just seems like a time-gated one. Any others? Led the charge. Leading the charge. Okay, what on earth what was I using 3 for? Original challenger leading the charge. Man, I am not consistent here. Not sure how this is different than limited time only. Combine. Player must spend more than an OP to accomplish this. Okay, so the requires purchase. Now you might need to spend real money. It might not be fair. Okay, Okay, I'm just going to say player must spend LOTRO points, Mithril coins, or real-world currency to accomplish this. I don't think it's fair to say, oh, you must spend Mithril coins is the gatekeeper, because you can always buy Mithril coins with LOTRO points. And so, yeah, some mounts that you need to complete some of the collection deeds, for instance, you can buy those with Mithril coins. Now, that's the only way to get them. And you can buy those Mithril coins with LOTRO points, and it's not a huge number of LOTRO points, but it's not something you can just do by interacting with the game by doing quests or exploration or whatnot. Same thing, there's some deeds like, you got the Mordor Ultimate bundle or something. Cool, but you had to spend money for it, so you're not counted. It's not counted against you if you didn't do that deed, in that sense. Okay, so we're talking about deeds that you must... I'm tempted to just add another reason called difficulty, or landscape difficulty, because it doesn't require purchase, obviously. It is time-gated / limited time only, in the sense that if you go beyond level 11, you can't participate with them. But that's not the calendar wall clock kind of time gating. That's character gated. I feel like I was thinking time-gated was you have calendar days to complete this. You must complete it by such and such time. Limited time only I could see being used for things like the difficulty deeds, because if you don't start them and continue qualifying for them by a specific level, then you don't get them. But limited time only has such a sale connotation in American English. Buy it now, limited time only kind of thing, that I feel like it was a mistake to use that in the first place. I think it'll be easier. Deed is linked to the landscape difficulty system, where you must begin it before level, I think it's level 11, and stay once and not drop below a certain difficulty before level 50/130. Okay. And we're just going to make that a multi-line comment because it's a bit large. So we're going to call that equals landscape difficulty. And then I'm just going to remember to copy this over to the German and French files. Otherwise, it will cause problems. Okay, awesome. So our not actively available is going to be 6. We just have to remember that. And now the get string not available can go ahead and fill in that reason in parentheses after. Okay. So this processor, this post processor that sits between the LOTRO companion data exports and deed tracker is now, if that difficulty list contains it, we're just going to mark it not available equals 6. Let's just run that real fast and see how it goes. This part's the boring part, but we're going to see what changes in the source control once it's done processing these. So this is loading in the data exports and then munging it about in numerous different ways to produce those exports. Okay. So what we're going to see, my hope is that we're going to see, and I'm really going to make this bigger. Let's see, can I zoom out? View. Does not seem like it. Okay, so we're going to scroll on over, and where it was saying difficulty true, now we have not available equals 6. Awesome. It's exactly what we wanted to have, and we're seeing that in the English, and in the French and the German. The info strings English, German, and French have those changes as well. Okay, so let's take a look at that in the game. Let's go ahead and reload the plugin, I should say, and come on over to Class Race Epic. And it's going to think for a minute. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and... Nice. Okay, so we can see Apprentice of Song, landscape difficulty, and Disciple of Song, landscape difficulty. Our list is completed. But if we said hide... Oh, that's so funny. Did I forget to hit save on one of these files? Mm-hmm. Save all. Let's load that again. Great, that disappeared. Great. So we can see these are not there. But if we say hide not actively achievable deeds, we can see the ones we did complete, those are still shown because we got them, but the ones we didn't get are not being counted against us. Now, that's an interesting question because you could get credit for some deeds that are not actively... it's consistent with the system. I think I'm going to leave it like that until someone complains about inconsistent deed counts or something. But that gives us what we're looking for is these are now not actively achievable, so they're in blue there. If we had completed deeds, we can see those two are color coded to be not actively achievable, and their landscape difficulty. If we hide those, the other ones missing right now are promotion points, which have been not available over here on Treebeard for so long. I want my promotion points. Actually, I don't care that much about promotion points because they no longer give class trait points. And so right now, maybe I'm not worried about that so much. We'll see. Awesome. So don't hide that not actively achievable. Great. I think that's a solid solution for what we're looking for. Now there's no longer this is a difficulty server option. The one thing that we want to do is go ahead and kill that option if it's in anyone's save file. So let's revisit what that looks like. In the globals, we're looking for difficulty server. And that's the server settings. So when we're loading stuff in, we can go ahead and just clear that out. So in main, there's some functions that are in charge of that. If we're coming down the update data function, and we can just say, hey, version 3.1, we no longer, all servers are difficulty, and escape difficulty servers, so no need to track this anymore. If, and then this is in the server stuff, I think. If something, then end. And we want to nix this, difficulty server. Now that should not exist anymore except right here. Awesome. This was in default server settings. So what I want to find out is, what's that look like? Okay, that's load to server field. Okay, so we have the default secure server field name. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. So, care data server, and this is difficulty for server. Then we want to set that to nil, so it'll stop saving it in the save file. Equals nil. Okay, so how do we verify this? Well, first of all, we want to come back into the game, and we're going to unload the plugin. Then we're going to go ahead and load a save file up. So documents, Lord of the Rings Online. We're in plugin data, and we're going to all characters, and this is the, oh, sorry. This is probably right. Yep, we have the difficulty server equals true here. And so what we're expecting is after we load this and save it again, we are going to see, I'm going to make sure everything is saved. It is. We're going to see that that entry disappears. So, load. Awesome. Unload. Also awesome. Got to find that window again. And we can see difficulty is no longer there. So, that's just a quick check. If it's there, get rid of it. Okay, that seems pretty successful. Let's start wrapping this feature up. So in the README, enhancements, removed, whatever we called this thing, I don't know, strings, difficulty server, removed difficulty server option as all servers now have this feature. And then deeds, difficulty, landscape, difficulty, deeds are now marked not actively available. Cool. And that kind of encapsulates both of them. We're getting rid of the setting, and those deeds are not going to be globally marked as available for all servers because most characters that currently exist are above level 10. I expect. Okay, so that's our README change. And in our to-do file, I don't know, it's kind of disappeared here. We've got all servers are difficulty servers now. Remove that setting. Thanks to, I don't know, maybe Krell or someone who pointed it out to me. I was having a conversation one day and was like, oh, Right. So thanks for that. Mark difficulty is not actually available if not already. Yep. And difficulty in the data files. We should double check that that happened, but I believe it did. Difficulty. No longer there. Excellent. Okay, got that bug. Cool. I have a that's a bug that I don't think I have time for today, but I want to sometime. This might be an earlier ending stream than some other days where I might go another full hour, but I feel like we've gotten some good fixes here. So we might go straight into a release cycle here so we can see what it's like to release a plugin. So let's go ahead and get this committed first. So readme removed difficulty server option, marked difficulty feeds as not as NA. Okay, that's the README. Strings got rid of difficulty server. Plugin functions, no more is difficulty deed. Great. Is difficulty server? Nope. Is difficulty deed? Nope. And checking for that? Nope. Options, difficulty server? Nope. Main, clearing the difficulty server setting if it's present? Yes. Globals, getting rid of that difficulty server for new files. Awesome. Our to-do file, great. And then in the data files themselves, we've already taken a look at this, but just for clarity, we can see that the difficulty equals true has been replaced with NA equals 6, which is our difficulty deed specialty. Great. Let's go ahead and commit those. Our info strings, we've get commented the not active reason here, but we've also gotten landscape difficulty into French and German. Fantastic. Just a quick, simple 13 file change to get that all done. All right, I'm going to push those away from into the cloud so they're not only on my machine. Awesome. But at this point, we can go ahead and do a release. So what does that look like? Well, everyone's got their own process. If you're using the LOTRO interface SVN system, I believe it has a way to automatically do releases. I think Thurlore is a proponent of that. For me, I find Git too useful, so I keep using it, and too in line with the tools I use during my day job. So I'm just going to do the system that works for me. But be aware that if you use the SVN system on LOTRO interface, I think there's like a one-click deployment kind of thing that's available there. This is a little bit more manual. So I have a Plugin Along releases folder that I keep track of, and we have a deed tracker. Now I was thinking this is a big update release. We're going to go ahead and bump the minor version to 1. So this is be a 3.10. And in order to do that, we're going to want to remember to update the versions in the plugin here. So pull this up. We're looking for the plugin .plugin files. So let me make sure that's not underneath my face. And we have dtracker.plugin. That's going to be 3.10. Excellent. In the plugin compendium, that's going to also be 3.10. And the reloader, I don't think it matters. That's an internal tool that I've got. Okay, excellent. A lot of times I like to make sure I know what's changing between releases. And so I will take the old release folder and just clone it off. Copy that over. And then we can go ahead and start pulling over the changes, and that gives us a final chance to review them. So documents, Lord of the Rings Online plugins, Cube plugins. We're going to go ahead and compare these two. And we'll just go through each of the different files. Plugin, Excellent. That's a versioning thing. Oops. .plugin compendium, just a versioning thing. Cool. We're going to take both of those files. In deed tracker itself, we have the data files are different. Now, we've seen these before. This is Renewal of Gondor stuff. It's all the data for the new deeds for the Renewal of Gondor. Awesome. It is, again, more Renewal of Gondor stuff. These are the data files that say, how do these deeds appear in the UI, in what order? All right, landscape difficulty, Renewal of Gondor, landscape difficulty, Renewal of Gondor, and again, more Renewal of Gondor. These are all of the names of the deeds and how they've been changing. Great. These are the objectives for the deeds and how they've been changing. Awesome. That's all the data files, cursory glance, look great. Then we also come into the globals. We can see difficulty server is getting deleted. Debug options, we're going to go ahead and cache that away. We're going to stash that. Stash one file, yep. Debug. Okay, great. And now that's not there. Main, cool, this is killing that setting. Main win. This is getting rid of the deed to low level. Awesome. Yep. This is getting rid of the difficulty server option. Difficulty deed stuff, great. That's just the README file. These are the changes we've made. And the strings where we got rid of the difficulty server. Pretty straightforward for a release. Awesome. So the release files are ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and package them up as an optimist. And so to do that, I'm going to go ahead and make a new compressed file, a zip file. LOTRO interface will let you use a couple of different formats, but I just use the built-in zip file. It's fine. And you're going to want to make sure that the thing that goes into this zip file is the folder that lives in the plugins folder. So for me, I go plugins, Cube plugins, deed tracker. Cube plugins is the thing that needs to go in there. And so make sure when you're looking at your compressed file, that folder is what's there. This is a little less important if you only support manual installs, but if you do support installs through the LOTRO Plugin Compendium, it requires this format, this directory structure. So just be aware of that. It's a nice habit to get into. And that way, someone extracts this, they get the folder, that's the thing they're dragging into plugins. Super simple. Okay, so we have our zip file based off of these release files. Now we just need to have the documentation. And for documentation, I like to have that ready to go ahead of time, and I like to save each version of it. So if we come on into our, again, this doesn't get shipped, but I just call it website. We can go ahead and copy, paste. So we're going to go ahead and copy the 305, and we're going to copy and paste this. And we've got the new 310. Okay, so we've got just those two. Well, I've just closed my README file. That was silly. Let's pull that back open. Okay, so the LOTRO forums description. It looks like I messed up my version release notes there. Awesome. So this is 1.0 is now available. The link doesn't change. This fixes, what does this do? This updates deeds for U36 Renewal of Gondor. And I think that's true about each of these. So we're adding the deeds, landscape difficulty deeds that came with Renewal of Gondor. And enables manually checking the low level deeds. Okay, So here's the release notes. For this, I just copy these over. But in order to do a list in Markdown, it can be a little bit easier to go ahead and do some multi-editing things, and I'm more comfortable with that in Sublime Text. So what do we want? We want to first of all outdent things, and we need to start. We need to go ahead and do list. Oops, that's funny. And we need an end list. Oh, right. My labels go outside the lists. Whatever you do is fine. Just, consistency is nice for your own sake. And each of these is a bulleted item, so we're going to start with an asterisk. And that's it. That's how to make a bulleted list with the form markup markdown. Awesome. We can do the same thing, LOTRO interface, and we can come on in. Not a lot changes up above. The core functionality hasn't changed in a while. And we do have recent revision history though. So we're going to go ahead and fill it in. 06, version 3.1.0. And same thing, I'm going to pull from the forum. So updates deeds for update 36. Renewal of Gondor enables many of the checking below level deeds. Great. We also want the release notes are here. Now, that link is going to the wrong location, but it is close enough. It gets someone to the forum, and we'll update that after there is a forum post to link to. Other thing here, language. All right, are available in English, French, and German. I'm going to remove the release-specific things because we're doing much better language support. Automatic decompletion is supported for English, French, and German. Great. Yeah, I say that. I hope that what I'm thinking is correct. It's almost certainly fine. Okay, we're gonna run with that. Okay, known issues, recent revision history, great. So we're ready to go. By preparing these ahead of time, it makes the actual upload process a lot easier. So what we're going to do is go over to LOTROinterface.com, and if you are updating one of your own plugins, the easiest thing to do is just to go to that plugin page. So in this case, it's still updated from last week. Awesome. And at the bottom, there is an update edit button. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, let's go fix that typo here in this forum post. Oops. Great. I must log in. Well, let's see if I can do that. I'm not a robot. Or am I? Huh. That's really thinking about things. All right. Let's see if I'm logged in. I am not. All right, well, I'll just give that a minute. Invalid credentials. Well, that's unfortunate. I suppose it's possible. Let me see if I can sort that out here. I'm going to do that off stream. Neat. Well, I don't know what was wrong. Okay. So, for this, we're going to go ahead and, yeah, open this one here. So, dtrigger version 3344. I don't know that having this version number duplicated is a really good idea because it leads to exactly this problem. But it's the habit that I'm in right now, so that's okay. So we're going to go ahead and reply to the first one just in case this forum still has some sort of threading thing going on. And we're going to be ready to go with our new description. Okay, so that's the LOTRO forums description. I don't want to post that until the release is actually there. Pamela, I see your question. Let me finish my thought here. So, LOTRO interface, if it's your plugin, hit the edit button at the bottom. And we're going to go ahead and give it the information. This is 3.1.0. We're going to go ahead and upload the dtracker 310 file. And we're going to copy in that updated text that we had for 310. I highly recommend not typing into a web page like this if it's something long and complicated, because things can happen. Your web page might close and then you'd be sad. All right, we have some images here. They're probably still good, and we're going to go ahead and update. Fantastic. So then we're going to go ahead and do the post on the forums. And now we have this, we can go ahead and link to it with the link button. Oops. Link. And we're just going to copy that. We're going to bring that into the LOTRO interface and update that release notes are here link. Okay. So for that, we just copy paste it back into the LOTRO interface side, which is a bit of a chicken and egg thing. Absolutely. List my interfaces, dtracker, and once you can, just come into the edit page, and we're only updating the description just to get that release note in there. And then we can just update. We're not updating the file version, and so this is just a textual change. And that means we can come in here and see that the version 310 notes get linked to correctly instead of linking back to the 305. Perfect. But they're both there. Okay. So now people who use the forums for that kind of announcement, they get notified. Anyone who's using LOTRO interface, this is going to show up on the new and updated. It may take a little bit to update over here. That's okay. And you should see in red updated because that means it's been updated in a recent number of hours. We can see 310 there. And if we download it and go ahead and extract that out, what we're looking for is that these .plugin files have the version that we want them to. So I'm just going to open up a Sublime Text. Just a basic text editor, pop it open, 310, 310, great. So we think people are going to get the right version when it downloads. Okay. Pamela says, hey, before, how did you get started learning how to edit plugins? What a great question. I got interested in using plugins for MMOs back in my World of Warcraft days, 15 or 20 years ago, where I was using a few of them for this and that, and I had a friend who I knew was working on plugins, specifically an auction house plugin, but I didn't really get into the coding side of things at the time. I think the how to make code, which I knew how to write, interact with the game, I wasn't quite ready for that mental leap. And there may have been a well-published API at the time, that I'm not sure. That is the thing that tells us how our plugin can talk to the game. So here's the LOTRO API. So if I want a button, I can, here's some sample code of how to make a button appear on the screen. So making the leap from my own code to code that's running within another program, I wasn't ready for it at the time. So a couple of years ago, on Lord of the Rings Online, I was using a plugin called Minstrel Buff. And that made being a minstrel way easier. Because it just displayed, hey, how many ballads do you have? How many anthems do you have? But what I found playing a minstrel was that I was baffled by the behavior of ballads who have hypertext that says expires if out of combat for 9 seconds. And I was seeing that was not consistently true. For instance, I've been out of combat for more than 9 seconds here, so when I put a ballad on, by all rights, it should go away right away. It does not. And so when out of combat for more than 9 seconds when out of combat for 9 seconds is not a full picture of what's going on. And I was interested in the Minstrel Buff plugin showing me what was going on for these. And so I began going down the rabbit hole of tweaking an existing plugin. And I think that's probably the easiest way to get into making plugins for a game like Lord of the Rings Online, is take an existing plugin that you use and try to change just a small thing. Figure out where in the code you would try to change it. Now, this is, of course, much easier if you come from a coding background. Then you just have to learn the particulars of Lua and not the fundamentals of what is a for loop, what is a function. But if you can figure out where a plugin is doing a thing, so for instance, the opaque quest tracker plugin, which just puts a little dark box underneath your quest area, which is an accessibility feature for those people who have trouble reading this quest text. So if I come into the options and I want it to be a little bit more opaque, right? Like, where in the code is that happening? If I want to change the color and I click the color and I click save, where in the code does that happen? Or the lock can allow me to move the window. What part of the code is enabling this window to move? Things like that. Like, I want it to behave differently. I'm not sure how. This is a really simple plugin, but if I wanted it to... I don't really know. If I wanted to add a button that just made it go as tall as it could on the screen, right? Like just cover the entire upper, top to bottom. Or if I wanted to make, add a plugin to the options, it just makes it 50 pixels wider so I don't have to mess with it. Like, these are things. Or if this didn't already exist, if the lock image there, if there wasn't a way to turn it off, add a none button, right? Like, instead of an upper left button, add a none button. Be able to move it around. Just little fixes. So that's how I got started, was I wanted the Minstrel Buff plugin to show me when my ballads were going to expire. First of all, with a 9-second timer, and then the logic got more convoluted because it turns out that 9 seconds is not a complete picture. And so we can see, boop, the ballads are disappearing. And ballads are neat to have up because they give you buffs. For instance, in damage form, if you have all 3 of them up, you're doing plus 9% tactical damage. That's pretty cool. You don't want to do without that if you can avoid it. So knowing how those ballads are going to expire, when they're going to expire, I learned a lot about how minstrel ballads work just by trying to make the plugin reflect the game. So I put a 9-second timer in there, and it worked great. But then I did a different thing. I got out of combat, I got back into combat, I'm in combat, and then I'd finish that combat, and my ballads would immediately disappear. Right? This was baffling to me, and it took digging into why was there discrepancy between the plugin and how the game state worked, and that more rabbit hole to figure out how the game works, but also how to make the plugin reflect that. Agartha says, my journey was similar. I wanted to add a reminder for reforges to the LOTRO plugin. Long story short, I optimized and enhanced and eventually forked off a separate plugin. Yeah, absolutely. This is now Minstrel Buff 2. I was releasing patches for Minstrel Buff, but the large Minstrel revamp from last year seemed like a natural breaking point to go ahead and just say, you know what? It doesn't, there's too many changes coming in here. I'm reorganizing so many files. We're just going to start fresh with Minstrel Buff 2. And then I'm able to release updates for it instead of just patches. Awesome. Excellent question, Pamela. Well, I think we've reached sort of a natural conclusion of the stream. If there's any other last-minute comments, questions, concerns people want to toss into chat, go ahead and do that. I'm going to double-check that I did not forget to do anything. I always get nervous when I'm doing a release because I feel like I'm going to break everything. Like, people are going to download it and it's not going to work, and then they're going to be like, this stupid plugin, I'm never using that again, instead of just posting on and like, hey, it doesn't work. And it's a silly thing. Like, this is a pretty stable plugin, and it's working on my machine, and I haven't made that many changes, and I still get worried about it. But we can see the updated here. Oh, I was going to ask myself, what's my interfaces? So MinsterBuff 2 has been downloaded 8,000 times. Wow, that's wild. But because of the longevity of the site, if we look at MinsterBuff, the original one was downloaded 115,000 times because Melida did a great job with that plugin. And for a while, with my Out of Combat Timer patch, you had to download that separately, and there were only 9,000 downloads, so it may not be a huge deal. But yeah, 8,000 downloads, that's pretty awesome. And yet, I'm pretty sure my Opaque Quest Tracker has, 14,000. Like, this little box over here that just makes quests easier. It's a super simple plugin. Way more movement on that, because everyone has eye problems, and very few people care about minstrel ballads. Alright, I'm going to change that color to something a little bit either less or more egregious. Ooh, yeah. Okay, maybe that's better. Okay, we're going to go ahead and unload. Great. What are you up to? Excellent. Cool. Well, I think this is a great stopping point. We added, reviewed what it was like to add in a whole new update's worth of deeds, including very quickly what it's like to add a new tab into the deed tracker plugin. And then we picked off some low-hanging fruit in order to have not just an update release, but also one or two fixes here. And we can see right away that the Adeptive Song Landscape Difficulty, Master of Song Landscape Difficulty are getting called out. I think that's very helpful also, so we can just look at that and be like, oh yes, I care about that, or I don't. So in Gondor, we have the new Renewal of Gondor section, and in the plugin, the deed tracker plugin, we can see those are here as well. Now, this looks a little nicer. If I were to say my current level, I should restore my debug capability because that's very helpful. Stashes, debug, great. All right, so we're going to load deed tracker. Now, with debug capability turned on, I can pretend to be any level I want. So I can just go say, hey, you know what? I just leveled to 140. And then all of these deeds suddenly look a lot less ugly because they don't have the that level in there as well. Awesome. Well then, I think that's everything we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. It's super exciting on our release day when we can make things just a little bit better for people. Anyway, I do hope to see you all here, well, over on the LOTRO stream, but over here on Twitch next week. And until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.